disability is everywhere. Despite this, some believe disability is someone else's problem. Others can't imagine that disability would touch their lives, so they give little thought to the experiences of those living with disabilities, or even the people who care for them. Yet, disability, like any challenge or limitation, is simply a part of being human, a part of life. This makes the invisible border that has created an us and them particularly fragile. We just might be better off preparing for disability than running from it. Any one of us could become critically injured at any time as a result of an accident or be diagnosed with a debilitating disease that suddenly makes you one of them.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie and I am visually impaired. I have been living with my disability for 30 years. Believe it or not, I'm 50 years old. So for over half of my life, I have been living with this disability. Now, I use a cane when I am walking. But the thing is, if I am not using my cane, people are obviously not able to tell that I have a disability. Because, of course, disability does not have a face. So it's not to say that you have a look or a particular something about you that tells that you are. So being visually impaired, it comes with a whole lot of challenges. People meet you on the road and they ask you things that I guess for them are normal, but it tends to be a little, what's the word I can say? It tends to be a little invasive, embarrassing, condescending. You know, when people ask you things like, if you bathe yourself, who dresses you, if you cook, if you clean, if you whatever. I mean, things that every other person bearing disability does for themselves. So it makes me think about what the general public sees as a disability.
We often think of a visual or hearing deficiency as a disadvantage, when in fact, these traits are simply often different ways of perceiving, understanding, and interacting with our environment. Many persons with disabilities have adapted so that disability doesn't stop them from doing what they love.
I do part-time at the Center for the Blind, so I love caning furniture. It's something that comes really natural, so I like to do that. I can do hair. I actually went to the training board to do a course, and it was interesting because I was the first visually impaired person to go do it, and I came through with flying colors, and yeah. So I like braiding and weaving and just basically trying out things to hair. I like reading, and yeah, I can't see to read. So I use Braille to read, or recently I have been using audiobooks, which are easy to access using my computer, because I have the JAWS program, Job Access with Speech. So it tells me whatever I press on the computer. So it helps me a lot that I use it, yeah, like going on YouTube or whatever to listen to books.
The WHO defines disability as a general term that covers impairments, activity limitations, and participation restrictions that reflect the complex interaction between features of a person's body and features of the society they live in. Accessibility, inclusion, and respect of basic human rights determine whether those labeled disabled can or can't. Anne-Marie became visually impaired at the age of 20. Could that be the reason why she has adapted so well? And how do others who are disabled from birth cope?
I have a right to just be. Living with a disability in Barbados, it makes me wonder what people think. Because it seems as though, you know, back in the maybe the 20s and the 30s, when disabled persons were left inside, when they never came out and nobody knew about them. So people are shocked to see us walking around or shopping. I love shopping. I'm a girly girl. I love shopping. So I have the right to shop. I have the right to get on the bus and sit on the bus without people staring at me. I have the right to look nice and people not look at me suspiciously. And yeah, I can tell when people are looking at me, by the way. I have the right to live on my own if I choose, because you know it is a personal choice. I have a right to be married. I have a right to have children. I have a right to do anything that it is in my power to do, or even in my power to try.
How basic things like access and inclusion determine who can and who can't.
I have the right to go to the beach and enjoy swimming like anybody else. Also, I enjoy going out with my friends and watching a movie, or even going to the bar and having a drink or two. Sometimes, you know...
Next, on Labeled Disabled. Christopher was born with a condition called spina bifida. He has been a wheelchair user for his entire life, but that hasn't stopped this entrepreneur from pursuing his dreams.
Having a disability haven't affected me from going to school. I attended St. Mary's Primary and St. Leonard's Secondary. I'm also a business owner of HKC Creations, which is a handmade jewelry business by myself and my mom. I'm also an athlete, which I do wheelchair racing in Paralympics. And I represent Barbados in many disciplines, also on conferences and also with speaking on the behalf of persons with disabilities like myself.
Spina bifida is when a baby's spinal cord does not develop properly in the womb, causing a gap in the spine. Of the 4 million babies delivered in the US every year, about 1,500 to 2,000 are born with this condition. Life expectancy has increased significantly over the years, thanks to modern medicine. Living with a disability from birth hasn't stopped Christopher from pursuing his dreams.
My philosophy in life is to live life to the fullest, because for me, having a disability is only the beginning, but it's not the end of my life. My disability is just my identity as well as my wheelchair, but it doesn't stop me from moving around or doing what I set my mind to do. My greatest love first is representing my country in anything that I do. For example, like the wheelchair racing. And I was also a youth advocate under the United Nations, which gave me the opportunity to speak on the behalf of persons with disabilities in the region.
The triumphs, challenges, and needs of people with disabilities are as varied as the individuals themselves. Our perception needs to shift to one that is mindful of the diverse ways these individuals perceive and navigate the world, especially since many are not born into disability but enter it as they travel through life.
My disability is the loss of my legs, my feet, both. My life is pretty good. I do everything I want. My sons take me all about. Carry me all over if I want to shopping. The only thing that I would like to is to go to town. I like to shop sometimes, but that's one thing that I cannot do. So, no, everything that I want to do it for myself, I do. If I want to bake, I bake. I cook for myself. The only thing I don't do is wash. The only place that I can't really go is town with the wheelchair, because there's no access to the different stores that you like to go in. There's certain that you could go, and there's other places that you can't go. So that's the only thing that I feel that we should look after as people. Going away, I went away when I lose my first foot, and traveling on the bus and everything was perfect. I went all about, I went in stores, I could go anywhere. But home, there's certain places that you could go, and if I want to go, I have to go to Sherton, Hackett Hall, Sky Mall, and then places I have to go. But town of it, South Park, anywhere like that you want to go, you can.
Issues of accessibility need a critical examination and modern update to accommodate the thousands of disabled individuals who are currently marginalized by roads with no sidewalks, sidewalks with no ramps, ramps that are too steep and leading to buildings with narrow doorways, flights of stairs with no elevators, stores and offices with no designated parking spaces, and the list goes on and on. Truth is, even minor accommodations in these areas might make all the difference in helping these people lead what they believe to be normal, successful lives.
Success for me is the ability to work and be able to provide for my family and take care of my daily needs. All of us in life have challenges, but for a person with a disability, that challenge multiplies. But with a little determination, we can overcome all things in life. Nothing in life worth having and living is going to be easy. I love being home. I'm not an outgoing person. This is my sanctuary. I love being in the house, watching television. I'm a big sports fan, so I'm always watching cricket, football, do a lot of reading, music. I love my gospel music, reggae. So that my life was surrounding my wife, but she passed early last year in July. So it's about making adjustments now and finding new challenges.
Even though no one can transform our ingrained societal norms overnight, change is possible if we take time to listen, empathize, and regard every disabled individual as a complex person, trying like everyone else to fit in and build a life of their own.
I think attitudes are changing, but they're not changing fast enough. I think we've become so singular in our way of looking at life now that everybody is about their own space. So it is difficult as a person with a disability sometimes getting around, but there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be challenges. You just got to find a way to overcome them.
Using data from the Barbados Amputation Study of 2004, the Chronic Disease Research Center at the UWI-KPhil estimates that every year in Barbados, 1 in 100 people with diabetes will have an amputation. That's one of the highest reported rates worldwide. Negative attitudes are a major barrier for many disabled people to be connected with others.
I realize that people in general don't know how to deal with people that got a disability. And I got some people that, is very helpful, and I got some people that is not. Like me, for instance, before I lose my other foot, and I walk in, people never noticed that I had a disability. Because I didn't used to use the cane or nothing, I used to walk normal. And if I have on something that you can't see it, then they take it for granted that you have your own 2 feet. They don't look, and they're not very courteous. Others, when they realize, then they act differently. So I believe we need to educate the public, because it's taken to being courteous and being observant to people with disabilities.
As persons with disabilities try to function in environments not built for them, the physical barriers can sometimes be more awkward than the social ones.
Moving around sometimes is very difficult, having to access sidewalks or access buildings. not being able to get inside because there are no ramps or any type of elevators to assist us in getting from one level to the next.
I feel I got the right to do every single thing that I want to do without anybody telling me that I can't do it. That is what I feel. That is how I feel. So I try to do every single thing that I want to do. So that is me. And my sons just push me, and they say, well, sometimes they say no, and I will say yes, I'm going to do it. And then I do it. And they say, you see, nothing beats a try.
I have the rights as a person to sit here and move around, enjoy the atmosphere. I have a right as a person, but as a person with a disability, to expect certain norms that everyone else expects in life. Me having a disability does not make it different. It should not make it any different. I have a right to love and be loved, to enjoy whatever anybody else is enjoying, but with my own personal limitations on those things. Spoke it for me. I have a right to work, to be employed once I have the ability to do the job, to pay taxes, to complain about the government, to complain about my representative if I'm not seeing him and if he's not doing the best job that is possible. Just like anyone else, I have those rights. Let's make it happen.
I have the right to go to the beach and enjoy swimming like anybody else. Also, I enjoy going out with my friends and watching a movie, or even going to the bar and having a drink or two. Sometimes, I believe that that right is taken from us as persons with disabilities because of the infrastructure that we are faced with. So I want that this becomes something all of us are aware of as people in a society, not only because you see a person with a disability, but we have to live together in order to be inclusive.
According to the World Bank, 1 billion people from around the world experience some form of disability. Despite these high numbers, there are considerable gaps in services that are made available to people with disabilities. People living with disabilities just want the things that others in the community take for granted. Most importantly, they just want their human rights recognized and realized, and simply want to participate meaningfully in the life of their community. Without first-hand experience, many people believe that could never be me. Adapting to life with a disability when you never saw it coming.
Graduated from K-Field campus and I was working as an assistant manager. And I was actually away on a business travel. And I realized that my vision in my left eye was starting to get a little blurry, but I didn't tell anybody. I didn't call my mom on the phone.
I dropped my baby. Who does that? My baby slipped from my arms. Who does that as a mother? And it was situations like this where sometimes I would just fall.
I was bedridden. I couldn't walk, obviously. I remember just laying naked on a bed with sheets, sterilized sheets. I had no visitors, just my immediate family. And everybody wearing masks now. I was wearing masks on the ward. And it was...
When labeled disabled continues. Though it can occur in children as well as older adults, most people with MS are diagnosed between 20 and and 50 years old.
I have secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. I didn't always have secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. I was actually remitting, relapsing. So I used to get sick, like in instances I used to get something called optic neuritis, so thereby I used to lose partial vision. And I've been blessed because I've never lost it in both eyes. I've always had it in one eye. So I would go to the hospital, load me up with the steroids, and my vision would come back. So as I said, I was remitting, relapsing, but as time went along, I became secondary progressive.
Approximately 85% of people diagnosed with MS are initially diagnosed with a relapsing form of the condition, usually referred to as relapsing remitting MS. With secondary progressive MS, your disability gets steadily worse.
I had graduated from Cayfield campus and I was working as an assistant manager, and I was actually away on a business travel. And I realized that my vision in my left eye was starting to get a little blurry, but I didn't tell anybody. I didn't call my mom on the phone. I didn't tell the person I was with that I was experiencing any challenges. I said, when I get home, I can let my mom know, because I didn't want to worry her, because I'm her only child. And I know that my mom would be like, "You're what? And you're down there? We got to get you back home." So I waited, I came home, and I would have discussed it with her. I went to my GP at that time, who was Dr. Mohammed down in Warrens. And I could tell by the look on his face that something wasn't right. He's just like, Jamie, this isn't for me to deal with. And he would have sent me to an ophthalmologist. I think his name was Dr. Katz. I could be wrong. I speak under correction in Belgrade. And he also had a look on his face, Mr. Redmond. I couldn't believe it either. He looked on his face like, this is not for me, JB. He was really pleasant too, but at the same time, they need to work on their looks, especially when you're going to tell people, like, I come to you for something, and you're like, oh, this is not for me. But he was just like, no, this is not my forte. And he would have sent me to Dr. Marquez, a neurologist. I went to Dr. Marquez, and he did get a look on his face, but he let me know that he's not sure if I have MS, but I'm experiencing something called optic neuritis. And I needed to go in the hospital, so I would have called my mom. My mom was totally distressed, which is only understandable. And that's when he would have told me, sign me up. So I think I would have gone to him the Wednesday. It's crazy how I'm remembering this stuff now. I think I went to him the Wednesday, and by the Thursday, Friday, I was admitted to the hospital and hooked up to intravenous so that the steroids could flow through my body to bring back my vision. And my vision came back, and did a plethora test. Had something called lumbar puncture. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I would never forget that either. And he did that lumbar puncture, ran all the other tests, and everything came back negative, which I was grateful for. You know, but then 23, going 24, would have had other experiences with the same MS, would have gone through an MRI, didn't have any lesions in my brain at that time. And then based on all the other complications I was experiencing, I was still seeing Dr. Marquez, the pins and needles in my hand, constant pins and needles in my feet. And just the fact that my health was not doing the best, I still was going to my GP, but I still went to Dr. Marquez with the other ailments. So I had an appointment with Dr. Marquez. And I remember Dr. Marquez telling me that I have MS. And that same day with Dr. Marquez, because I was pursuing my master's in international management at the lovely Cayfield campus, and I had a presentation. So I left Dr. Marquez. I drove. I used to drive, but I don't drive anymore. And I would have gone to the campus to do the presentation, Jamie feeling like, yay, I got this. He told me I just got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I can still do this. But I would have seen presentations go before me, but then it was coming up to time to present, and I realized that my vision started to get blurry, and I thought to myself, is it possible I'm experiencing optic neuritis? But it wasn't optic neuritis, it was tears. I was crying. I didn't cry in Dr. Marquez's office. I didn't go to a presentation and cry. Dr. Lawrence Nurse was the lecturer. He realized what was going on, and he was like, okay, y'all don't have to worry about this. We can do this another time. Because my friend Stacy, she was willing to do my party presentation. But Dr. Nurse said, don't worry about it, we could present another time. And I realized at that time that as much as I felt that I had this, I didn't have it at that time. But when I came home, as Stacy drove me home because I couldn't drive, I realized that I need to look beyond MS. I was living with it before. I didn't know that I had it, but I was living with it before, but I didn't let it stop me. But because Dr. Marquez told me I have it, does not mean that it should prevent me from doing what needs to be done. And I didn't, because I graduated. I got the master's in the international management degree that I was pursuing. I got a fantastic job. I was real happy. Because you know that you pursue your studies and you finally get a job that you really just say, yeah. But then MS decided to rear its ugly head, because my office at the time at DFC was on the top floor and we had to climb stairs. And I realized that my foot was dragging along. Also my boss, he would have realized, and he knew what I had. But as I said, I wasn't like that. I wasn't impaired. And I had to say so long based on my walking was a challenge, and then fatigue. I get tired very quickly. Like even doing this right now, communicating with you, I may seem perky, but I won't mind lying down. But why should I lie down when I have things to do, you know? So, as I said, I graduated, got the job of a lifetime. Things were challenging because I thought to myself, I remember telling my mom, how are we going to do this? But that's one thing with my mom. She never gave up on me. Even though at times I felt as though I would give up on myself. She always like, Jamie, we got this. Because I was worried about how we're going to get through in terms of medical bills. Because to see the doctor is expensive. Medication for my situation was expensive. And then, as I said too, I was blessed enough to, the Lord knows what He's doing. I was blessed enough. I had a little boy, Joshua, and he has been a true help. Because a couple months back, I had a really bad relapse. Walking was on a whole new level, like to get in, even to get in the bathroom. My mom had to call my neighbor, our neighbor I should say, Jeffrey. But sometimes he wasn't always available, Jeffrey Watson. He wasn't always available, and we had to then get the help of another friend from the neighborhood. He works at the hospital to lift me in and out. It was a really bad relapse because I had told the doctor I don't want to go in the hospital to be hooked up to IV just to lay there. So he was very good to me. He actually prescribed a Bajan Mobiton of medication, and it worked. When I tell you it was a Mobiton, I mean it was a lot. The same way that I would have taken the medication intravenously, I was now taking it orally, but I believe he had to up the dosage to ensure that really, as opposed to going through the veins and whatnot. So I was able to bounce back, but Josh was also there for me a lot. Sometimes he used to feel bad because, you know, here's this little boy, but he had like a real trooper, you know, because some days I knew he would have preferred to be on his PS4 dealing with his friends, but here he has to deal with his mom. But he's just like, get over it, mommy, I got this, mommy, don't worry about it. So through my mom, through the fact that Joshua never gave up on me as well, that's true, yeah. People didn't give up on me.
Compassion and support from loved ones make all the difference. People's impairments aren't at all times physical and can't always be seen. Many often assume disabled people will look or act a certain way.
Looking at me, I'm fine. You do not know my struggle. You cannot see my struggle. It is what we call invisible.
A young mother and wife blindsided by a diagnosis. That's next on Labeled Disabled. Symptoms of multiple sclerosis vary a great deal from one person to another. No two people have the same combination of symptoms. This, of course, complicates identification and diagnosis.
My name is Melissa Ford, and I have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed in August of 2018 after quite a few years of knowing that I was battling with something but not exactly knowing what I was battling with. In 2018, I had a trip where the morning of the trip, as I was getting ready to go to the airport, I experienced challenges with my eyes. It just started with one eye, my left eye, and it progressed throughout the day. I just thought it was maybe something had flown into the eye and it was just burning a bit. However, by nightfall, I could only see white from the right eye. As the night progressed, I got up the morning and I could see nothing out of any of the eyes. During the second day, I started seeing white again, and then I could not see color, and that alarmed me. For reasons more than one is that I was overseas. However, I had just started my trip overseas and had no idea how to seek medical attention as I was in a foreign land. I reached out to my primary caregiver here in Barbados, and he suggested that it was a good idea to see someone urgently. Unfortunately, I could not see anyone as I was in Toronto, and I had no idea on where to go, who to contact about it. At the same time, it was quite difficult for my family and I, as I had never experienced this condition before. In 2 weeks, I came home and I had a doctor's appointment waiting for me. When I got home, as soon as I got off the plane, my doctor had arranged for me to see someone. Right now, off the back of his head, that does this is a condition called multiple sclerosis. Have I ever heard of multiple sclerosis? I said briefly, maybe just on the television, you may just see an advertisement talking about multiple sclerosis. So I said to him, isn't that a condition that happens in old people, where they are in wheelchairs or they can't help themselves and stuff like that? Isn't that multiple sclerosis? I am young, I am in the prime of my life. Can this happen to me? And he said, sad to say, yes, it can happen to you. That in recent times he have found persons even in their early 20s with multiple sclerosis. He said, however, I don't want to scare you, but I think you need to go and have an MRI done, and that will verify this diagnosis. But I'm thinking that that is what is going on with you. Tears start to flow because I'm saying, you know what, this is my sight. I need my sight. I have my family. I want to spend time traveling and doing all the things that I love, and I need my sight to do this. And he said, we're going to take care of you. By that time, which would have probably been within 2 weeks, my sight had come back completely. I could see color, I could see everything. So I still felt good, but I went ahead and I got the MRI done. The day that I got back my results, I sat in the car outside his office and I said, you know what, this envelope contains something about me. I'm going to open this envelope, I'm going to read and see what is going on. And like I said before, I have been battling something for more than a decade. So most doctors will tell me, oh, you're fine, your test results show that you are good, everything is okay with you. And I have been hearing that over the course of about 10 to 12 years. So I said, you know what? This is going to be just one of those situations. I'm going to hear once again, Melissa, you are fine. The first thing that popped out to me was words like severe, multiple, irreversible, and this just hit me for six one time because I am like, this sounds like something serious. And my husband was in the car with me and I said to him, hun, this is not what I thought it was gonna be, because I'm expecting to hear once again they found nothing wrong with me. And I said, well, I cannot understand all of the words as it is doctor's terms, but I read multiple lesions on the brain, the spinal cord, severe, irreversible, and I am like, oh my gosh, something is really wrong with me. Once again, tears start to flow. This was a bittersweet experience for me. I went into the office. The doctor said, he opened the envelope and he said, I'm so sorry to inform you, but the MRI is confirming multiple sclerosis. I felt, I had two emotions that hit me. I felt like a ton of bricks, and at the same time I felt somewhat relieved, because at least the multiple sclerosis is not anything I wanted to hear was wrong, but at the same time it felt good to know that something was going on with me, that something was wrong. And for the first time in all this time, I knew then I wasn't going crazy. I had one doctor that said to me, maybe it is in my head. Maybe I am depressed. Maybe this, maybe that. And I said, no, it cannot be that, because I am planning my wedding. I am happy. So I cannot be depressed. This is not in my head. I dropped my baby. Who does that? My baby slipped from my arms. Who does that as a mother? And it was situations like this where sometimes I would just fall and I would stay on the ground, not to alarm my family. And I would just say something like, I was praying and I just fell asleep down there. So I know within myself that it wasn't anything going on in my head. I know I wasn't going crazy. So it felt good, even though it was not what you wanted to hear. But I felt good to know something was going on with me and that it was something that it was real. After this, I started my research. What is multiple sclerosis? Because I had no knowledge of it. My family, my relatives, close persons around me had no idea what multiple sclerosis was. So the internet became my friend. And you know, sometimes too much information is not good. That was me. I would spend hours on the internet just Googling what is multiple sclerosis, what it can do, what it wouldn't do, and stuff like that. And there was a time I just stopped reading. I stopped reading because it was too much. It was too much coming to me all at the same time. What was most hurtful to me was when I told my family. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and at the time she probably was like 10, and she didn't ask much questions. I tried to bring over to her as easy as I could, try to explain it to her. But she didn't have questions. She just said, okay, mommy. And then one day she was on my phone, because she loves to Google on my phone and stuff. And I just went behind her on my phone a couple hours after, and I realized that she had Googled, will a person die from multiple sclerosis? And once again, that brought tears to my eyes, because she did not come to me and have that conversation with me. She didn't know how to, but she went on the internet. And obviously she learned that I will live a very long life with multiple sclerosis. And I just saw her face change. So I knew that it was a relief for her that mommy's not going to die. This condition is not going to take mommy from me. So she felt someone, and then she opened up a bit and she was able to come to me and to talk to me. My husband is also on board, and he is my #1 fan. He is there for me through it all. And with multiple sclerosis, I will say you need a support system. You need it. Need it. You need persons in your corner. You need understanding persons that will lift you up, that will help you the days that you are down. And for me, a person with multiple sclerosis, but as you can see, I'm fine. Looking at me, I'm fine. You do not know my struggle. You cannot see my struggle. It is what we call invisible, an invisible condition. But I do have the struggles. I do have the constant pains, the numbness. I do have it all.
Disability changes your life and relationships in major ways. Things that were once routine can seem insurmountable.
I was diagnosed with MS in 2018. I think it was May 2018. I had went blind in my left eye after suffering from a very nasty migraine headache. And one morning I was coming down the stairs, realized I was walking oblong, like feeling for these steps. And I don't know what got into me, but I just blocked my eyes like that. And I realized I could have seen out the right eye, but the left eye, completely darkness. And I just made a joke in the house saying, "Oh, Mom, my head is hurting me so much that I can't even see out my eye." I brushed that off. That was on Easter Monday. That was an Easter Monday. And later that evening, we went to Oystings Fish Festival. Headache still there, the loud music and everything, lights, bright lights. I couldn't take it, so I came home. And the Wednesday morning, I got up. And still the nasty headache, still can't see out the eye. And by this time now, the eyeball is hurting. So when I roll the eyeball, blink, it's hurting. My mom told me don't play with my vision. I went to a QEH, accident emergency. I was seen by a doctor. I got discharged and was told to come back the Friday for, a follow-up. So I left and went back. By the Friday, still extremely pain despite the medication they were giving me to take. And I was admitted then. And I was given steroids through IV. And obviously the pain and everything went away. But a doctor did tell me that I should do an MRI, because normally what they had diagnosed at the time, optic neuritis, is linked with MS, which is multiple sclerosis. And I kind of put that on the back burner. A year later, it happened again, same experience with the blind eye, this time in the right eye. But because I knew what I went through with the left eye the year in front, I went straight back to the hospital, admission, steroids again through IV, and that was then when I did the MRI, and it was diagnosed then. Ever since then, I've been battling with the MS. Like I said earlier, I work in a dental office. I've been in dentistry for 14 years as a dental assistant. So with my MS in the office, with my MS, I normally, my attacks happen more with my feet. Dental assistant, you're basically on your feet, up and down, working on patients, sterilizing, it's a fast-paced job. And then I realized, it's starting to play a toll on me in the office. Well, in between that, shortly after I was diagnosed and given the steroids, before we go forward, with my pregnancy, steroids have a bad thing. So people normally say when you have steroids, it's not good for the body. So I decided to do a body cleanse, full body cleanse I did. I didn't quit, so I got pregnant. The doctor did tell me pregnancy, but now that I'm pregnant, well, at the time, now that I was pregnant, that it would take away all signs of MS any numbness that I've been experiencing, all that, and she was right. Then after I had Sky, this is like, could be like months, she was like 6 months, 7 months after, the problems start coming back, the numbness in the legs. I'm back out to work now, but the numbness in the legs, the hands. Sometimes when I go out with my friends, I realize that, you know, things were dropping from my hands, and I'm like, well, I'm not even drinking, so what's going on? And like I said, then that led up to the right eye, then the blindness in the right eye again, and the whole cycle went over. And it was diagnosed then after I did the MRI. And going forward now, back to the dental office. Like I said, it's been playing a toll on me. There's sometimes I was working next to the dentist and like handing or mixing materials. I realized that, you know, the weakness in my arm, and sometimes the hand going numb, so I have to sit down or have to call to another assistant to come and take over the procedure that I was doing. And then some days, you know, in the office, walking, losing feeling in the legs, going numb, and that's what really then started to pull me down in the dental office. One morning, this was in 2019, I was on my way to work, nasty headache again, because I suffer from very bad migraines. So I was going in the gas station to get some Panadols, and on my way out, after I paid, I caught the van, everything was good, fine that morning. I got up, got dressed for work, everything was alright. But the minute I was about to leave the gas station, my entire left side went numb. Both my leg and my hand, and I fell. There were two people there, a gas station attendant and another young lady. They helped me, and I sat on a bench. It took me like 45 minutes before I could have really get back conscious, you know. And I remember the guy was asking if we needed an ambulance. And like I said, MS also interfere with your speech. So I'm trying to say no. In my mind, I'm saying no. Like, to me, I'm yelling no, but nobody can hear me. And I'm like, well, why y'all can't hear me? Y'all keep asking the same question. And then I realized, you know what, maybe they can't hear me. And I was able to move my right hand, and I gave a little wave to say, no, I don't need the ambulance. So I knew what was happening. So as soon as I got back feeling, I made my way into work, and it happened again. I was in the lab sterilizing some instruments then. And thank God one of my co-workers at the time she was there, she helped break my fall this time in the office. And I remember I going to the doctor then, and it was obviously, you know, giving medication. And 3 weeks after taking that medication, I had a nasty allergic reaction. So now this, dealing with the MS, and this brought on something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is a very rare and sometimes fatal skin reaction.
Adapting after diagnosis can become more difficult when complications, limitations, and additional health challenges appear. In Stevens-Johnson syndrome, the immune system overacts to medication or an infection. This causes flu-like symptoms, fever, blistering, and a rash. The top layer of skin may separate, leaving raw, exposed skin that's susceptible to infection. This syndrome is a medical emergency, and hospitalization is often required to identify the underlying cause and to control the symptoms while new skin grows. Recovery can take weeks or even months.
And I remember going to one medical place, and they could not figure out what was wrong with me. All this pain I was in. I had sores in my mouth, like bloody mouth. Underneath the soles of my feet, had this rash. It started to come about my body. The vision got very blurry, and nobody knows what's happening. Well, they sent me home and told me I should go back to the doctor who prescribed the medication. But by the time we left that medical place, it was like, no, I can't go home. Like, you know, I can't go home because we don't know what's happening yet. So this pain I'm in. So we went to, my brother took me to A&E once again, and we got there. At first, doctors still couldn't figure out what was going on with me, what was happening. They discharged me, and within hours of coming home, and you know, as the hours went by, in this very short space of time, as the hours went by, I got worse, and the breathing was somewhat in and out. The sores, like, I couldn't swallow because my mouth just drooling, all this blood coming from my mouth. The sores got, I couldn't walk by then, so it was like barely scratching and bearing the pain as I tried to take a step back to the hospital. The doctor's like, yo, you're back so soon. It's like, yeah, it getting worse. And then one doctor came and said, that looks like a case of early stage of the Stevens-Johnson. So Dr. Bamji was calling, and when he saw me, I remember, whew, sorry. Oh, yeah. I remember him saying that I will get worse before I get better, you know, if I get better. And I remember on my bed there at that time, I said, you know, Doc, just do whatever you have to do to save my life. So here it was, like, I was taking some medication to help with my MS, but they brought on this other condition, and it's very rare. So that's hence why the doctors at first didn't realize what was happening in the early stages. I was admitted, and that was October 2019. And I was bedridden. I couldn't walk, obviously. I remember just laying, just naked on a bed with sheets, sterilized sheets. I had no visitors, just my immediate family. And everybody wearing masks now. I was wearing masks on the ward. And it was an experience that sometimes when I look back at photos, because I don't have really much of a memory, but when I look at the photos, then it brings it back, and I'm like, I cannot believe the pain and little suffering that I went through, and I'm here now today.
Where are we in the fight to protect and promote the rights of individuals with disabilities? When Labeled Disabled returns. While the challenges and needs of people with disabilities are as varied as the individuals, those of us who benefit most from society's current structure have a duty to create a more inclusive world. That would start to diminish many of the everyday challenges faced by people who are living with disabilities.
I should be able to have the right to access a sidewalk without having to call someone to lift me in the wheelchair onto the sidewalk. A sidewalk should not be simply something for the able-bodied to step up onto. You should also be thinking about those who have challenges, or even a mother with a pram, you know what I mean, that needs to get on the sidewalk. You shouldn't have to be lifting things to get into a position to go somewhere. And that has been challenges, even to going to a store. I remember a time we did a walk with the MS Society of Barbados through Bridgetown to show the people the challenges that we experience with our wheelchairs, our rollators, and our walkers. And we also would have done one on the West Coast. And if you saw what we had to put up with, I mean, there were instances where we actually had to go in the road because the sidewalks were either too high or they were so dilapidated in terms of there were potholes in the sidewalk and the bush and the shrubbery. So you imagine, here we are doing a walk on accessibility in Barbados, and we could not traverse on the sidewalk. We had to go in the road. But thank God at that time, the people were quite patient. I guess they saw walkers and wheelchairs in the road, and they didn't see, oh dear, I need to take care. They saw, oh dear, I need to make sure this is not a legal liability on my part. So that is something that needs to be contended with. Accessibility as it relates to these sidewalks, even into stores. Accessibility as it relates to bathroom facilities. And then when the bathroom facility is accessible, there are people in them. People are in the areas that are for us. I remember a time to my mom, we went out and we couldn't find a disabled park because the disabled parks were full with vehicles warranted. The people may have had a disability, but they did not have on the necessary stamp or the signage. And that's the thing, those spots are put there and labeled as being for the disabled for a reason, because they're close to a door. They're at an area where my mom doesn't have to worry about lifting or getting someone to lift the wheelchair because it has a ramp. So we have issues like that. And also, as I would have mentioned earlier, when I am going out, I have to call facilities to find out if they are accessible. And on more than one occasion, we did call when I went out with my friends. We did call the facility and they said they were accessible. Then we finally get there and then I still had to be lifted into the people's premises. You know, and I remember a time we went somewhere, a beautiful place. It was nice. I love it. Lovely restaurant. And my friends would have told them, oh, well, I have a friend with a challenge. She's a wheelchair user. And they still put us on another level, not another level with, what do they call it, elevator access, stairs, and not in 5 steps, no, a full flight of stairs. So things like that need to be taken into consideration, because it's not only for the people of Barbados, which are very vital, but you're claiming to be a society that is a tourist area. So people come to Barbados for a different take from their environment, and then they finally come here with their challenge, and then they can't get into a facility because the wheelchair door may not be big enough or they don't have ramps. So the people need to take those things in consideration whenever they're doing anything. Even when they're building sidewalks, you need to look through, not just, oh, I'm building a sidewalk for people to walk on. I'm gonna have to build a sidewalk for people who need access, who do not have the ability to walk.
I have the right to live a close to normal life and for my independence. When people hear that you're disabled or somebody with a disability, they always think that you can't do nothing at all, or you shouldn't be doing anything, you know, because you're disabled, you have a disability. You can't just get up and go as you like. But for me, I still think that people with disabilities still have the right to some kind of independence, do something on their own. It could be a job. Some people might be in a wheelchair. They may not be able to be physically on a job, you know, doing things, but there's computers, there's, you know, you can sit down and have a job doing something, you know, your mind is still going. So everybody, like I said, and like you say too, everybody's challenge is different. But I still think that people with disabilities still have the right to have their independence in certain areas.
Acknowledge, understand, and embrace the widespread nature of disabilities. Disability touches every demographic category and impacts most people eventually through accident, illness, or aging. We must work to raise the quality and quantity of provision and services available to persons with disabilities. Encourage the necessary changes in our structural environment to enable persons with disabilities, both visitors and residents, to have access to facilities. Let's take the next step and leave discrimination of people living with disabilities behind. The task that falls to us is to make the political, social, and economic changes necessary to enable this to happen. Let's build a more inclusive Barbados.
Let's make this happen today.
Let's make this happen.
Let's make this happen.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make this happen.
Let's make this happen.
Let's make this happen.
Let's make this happen.